just fill in some empty spots, some blanks that we left out before, which are important points. But there's a lot of moral stories over here, a lot of moral ideas that are presented here in this narrative. So just to go over them, right, to make sure we don't miss the major points. We already spoke about the point that Moshe Rabbeinu, right, was coming out when he was appointed chief of staff of Paro. So what happened was that he comes out and he sees two Jewish men fighting with each other, Nitzim, it says, right? What does that mean, Nitzim? They were, throwing fists, having a fist fight, whatever. So what happened was that they really didn't hit each other. They just he just put up his arm to hit, So at that point, it says in the Pasuk, right, that Moshe Rabbeinu said to the Rasha, he calls him a Rasha, So why do you hit your fellow? He tells them, right? So what, the Midrash darshans from there, an amazing thing. It says that what? Why did he call him a Rasha? He didn't hit him yet. Okay, at least wait till you hit the guy, then you call him a Rasha, A person who hits his fellow Jew is a Rasha. That's true. But what about if you didn't hit him yet? Still call him a Rasha? So it says the Midrash, we learn from there that what? That even if you just raise your hand to hit your fellow Jew, you're already called a Rasha. Even though you didn't hit him yet. Can you imagine? So what does that mean, right? That's a very good moral lesson for us. Why? Because we're living, we have here 108th Street, we have Forest Hills High School, the jungle over there. So all these places, right, they know what's going on there, right? There's a lot of violence. So, there are also Jews beating each other up. There's all kinds of things like this going on. It's unbelievable. This Jew hit this Jew, right? And they don't even look Jewish, these people, but they turn out to be Jewish, whatever. It turns out that they're Jewish. So, right, we see from there that a person who does this kind of thing, hits his fellow Jew, even if he just raises his arm to hit him, is already a Rasha. Not allowed to hit your fellow Jew, right? It's considered to be a very big sin. Isur Deoraita from the Torah, this sin of hitting your fellow Jew. That's number one, right?
Goys, you hit the goys?
Not for no reason. I mean, depends on what you can't hit anybody. I mean, the truth is, you can't hit anybody.
That's the law.
But what we're saying is, right, that if you hit your fellow Jew, you can call the Rasha. That's something, something very unique.
Bad.
Rasha means, wicked person. You're wicked. Okay, that's the idea. That's the number one, right? Mm-hmm. So then, I wanted to also point out another thing, which is that comes now Moshe Rabbeinu, right, and tells to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He says, listen, when I go to the Jews, right, to tell them that you came to save them, to redeem them, what should I tell them? What should I say? What kind of statement should I make about that? So he told them several things, right? Number one, he told them, first of all, right, make sure that you tell them that Pakod Ifkod. What does that mean? Right? It's a double language. Why? Because what's the reason why I told double language? Pakod Ifkod, in Hebrew, it means I remembered you, I didn't forget you. I came to visit you, to redeem you. So why did he tell them to say the word double language, right? I will surely redeem you, like something like that. What double language? Because they had a tradition, right? What happened was that when Yaakov Avinu brought them to Egypt, he brought them to Mitzrayim, and Yosef HaTzadik was there and everybody, so they had a tradition from Yosef HaTzadik and Yaakov Avinu, that they will be redeemed one day from Egypt. So how will they know that the redeemer is true, right? It's not a false prophet, not some kind of false redeemer. How will they know? What's the sign? They had a sign. So the sign was, if he says double language like that, right? Pakod Ifkod. So then Pekidah, which means like remembering, the Jews knew, they had a tradition that if they would hear that double language, they knew they were going to be redeemed. So therefore Kadosh Baruch Hu told to Moshe Rabbeinu, he said, listen, go and tell them this double language, because then they will know that you're real. They will know you're not a fake.
I'm sorry, Rabbi.
Yeah.
We see many times in Torah when Hashem talks, he talks in double language.
Right, that's also true. There's all kinds of things that we learn from these things, by the way. There's always reasons for that, But in this case, right, this is what it was meant to be. That double language is coming to tell you, listen, this is the real guy. Here he is.
That's what I brought.
Right, believe him. Right, he's not a fake. That's number one. Also, Moshe Rabbeinu asked him another question, right, to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He said, listen, you're telling me to go and to redeem the Jews, but what should I tell them? So, HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells him like this, go and tell the Jews, I am with you. I, God, am with you now. I remembered you. I will be with you now. Not only that, I will be with you to redeem you from Egypt, but I will also be there to redeem you from the future exiles that there will be. Just like I redeemed you over here, I'm going to redeem you here, also from the future exiles. What future exiles are we talking about, right? As we said, right? There was altogether 4 exiles, besides Egypt, right? There was Babylonia, right? Iraq. Then there was Paras, Persia. Then there was Greece, right? And the last one is Rome. That's the one we're in now. Right? We're still in the Roman exile. By the way, in the book of Daniel, it says that there's also another opinion brought down there, right? Besides the exile of Rome, there's Galut Ishmael.
Which one?
That means the Arab exile, right? Ishmael is Arab, right? Yeah. Galut Ishmael. So what does that mean? That these two, explain the sages that these two galuyot, these two exiles work together in conjunction, at the same time, right?
Like now.
Half Ishmael and half Rome. It's a combination of both working in unison. That's the way it is, right? Some places are like this, some places like that. That's the way it is, right?
That's the way it is now.
Right, that's exactly
All
what we
of
have.
Europe is Muslim, and the U.S. is Christian.
Okay, so what I'm saying is like this, right? That what I'm saying is
And they run the
that
slavery too.
Moshe Rabbeinu, when he heard this, right, from Hashem, what I just told you, so he objected to this. He says that to Hashem. He says, with all due respect, but what you just told me, I don't think this is a very good idea. Can you imagine a person tells that guy to God? He tells God, it's not a good idea. Maybe you should try something else. And by the way, this was the amazing thing about Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu was talk to Kadosh Baruch Hu like a friend. Mouth to mouth he spoke to him. So what does that mean? Just like, your friend tells you something, and you say, I don't think that doesn't sound right. That's not a good idea. Don't do it this way. Do it a different way. So Moshe Rabbeinu was telling Hashem the same thing. Can you imagine? So what did he tell? What was his remark to Hashem? He said to Hashem, listen, I don't think it's a good idea to mention the future exiles. Why? Because they're so embittered now with this exile. To now scare them and tell them there's going to be more exiles after that, it's going to make them into hopeless, It's going to make them totally lose hope. So he told him, he says, what's the point? Just let's talk about the current problem, right? Why do we have to talk about the future now? This is not the time for that.
God says, good idea.
Right, exactly. So Kadosh Baruch Hu agreed to that, Can you imagine a person tells Kadosh Baruch Hu, listen, you made a mistake, and he agrees, Hashem agrees, he says, okay, fine, that sounds good. That's the way it was. So, I wanted to point that out, right? To show you that how great Moshe Rabbeinu was, that he was telling God,
So
can you imagine?
And went like this.
No.
And God listened.
He spoke openly with him.
He spoke with him, yeah.
Like me.
Face to face.
Like we're discoursing.
That's it, that's the way it was.
It was God's choice.
Also,
So God goes, okay.
I want to cover also another interesting point, right? Very, very, very fascinating thing. What happened was that Moshe Rabbeinu, right, as we said, he left Midian to go back to Egypt because HaKadosh Baruch Hu told him to go. He said, you gotta do my business over here, right? My job. I gave you a job to do. Go for it. So Moshe Rabbeinu made a mistake, though. What was the mistake that he made? He was a little bit too haphazard. A little bit too hurried and rushed. So, what was the mistake that he made? He just had a son that was born at that time, right? His name was Eliezer. He had 2 sons, right? Gershon and Eliezer.
Gershon, right.
So what happened was that Gershon was born already a while ago, but Eliezer was born now. So what happened was that exactly the time that he was supposed to go to Mitzrayim, what happened was that he was born at that time, and he was supposed to do the Brit Milah, right? How many days you have to do Brit Milah? 8 days. You got to do. On the 8th day, you have to do Brit Milah. That's the way it is, right? You cannot delay that. You have to do it right on time. Not too early, not too late, right? If you do it too early, it's also no good. You have to do it again. You know that, right?
Okay.
If you do it too early, it's got to be done again. So you didn't fulfill your obligation. So what happens is, right? Kadosh Baruch Hu tells Moshe Rabbeinu, he says, listen, go and do my job. But what happened was Moshe Rabbeinu was a little bit too much in a hurry. So he forgot to do the milah, he ran off, So he said, you know what? I'll do the milah like on the road, somewhere We'll stop off at the the gas station somewhere, 7-Eleven.
Oh,
We'll stop off somewhere and we'll do it over there. What's the big problem? So what happened was that this wasn't acceptable to Hashem, this whole thing, right? So what did Hashem do? Hashem sent an angel, right?
No, he sent a
Right?
force.
It wasn't one of those green things. No, we're not talking about that, right? So he sent an angel, and the angel came. What did he do?
Swallowed him.
Did he have wings?
He took his mouth, right, and swallowed Moshe Rabbeinu. Like he swallowed him, Can you imagine somebody just comes and swallows you? Like a big fish,
Like a snake.
Like a big shark, just great white, comes and, right, whatever. Can you imagine? He gets swallowed up. So comes this angel and swallows him. So the question is, what's going on? He's not telling them the reason why he's doing that. He's not talking. He just comes and swallows you, right? So what happened was that they didn't know what was going on, and he was with his wife. His wife was also there, Tzipporah,
Swallowed
and his children.
with the force.
So what happened was that Tzipporah is looking at this, right? Looking at this whole thing, and she's not understanding what's going on. Why is my husband being swallowed by an angel? So how did she understand? How did she come to understand what happened? The reason that she understood was because he wasn't swallowing his whole body. He was swallowing him until the place of the milah.
Belly button.
The general area.
The navel.
So what happened was, first he swallowed him from the top, and he went until that point.
He can't breathe.
Then he swallowed him from the bottom, again, right, from the legs, again, it stopped at that point. So Tzipporah understood, right? She said, "Oh my, it must be because of that point." She got the point. She got the point of the point. Right?
Yeah, right.
So she says, "Oh wow, okay." She says, "I now understand what the problem is, right? It seems like this angel is coming trying to tell us, right? Either you do the Brit Milah, or you're going to be swallowed up, or something like that, right?" So therefore, what does she do? She takes a blunt object, right, some kind of a blunt rock, and she does the Milah on her son.
Blunt?
Can you imagine?
Sharp, you mean?
Yeah, blunt. That's what it means. Blunt means sharp. Check in the dictionary. So what happens like this, right? That she does the milah, and all of a sudden the angel, got off their back. So she knew that was the reason why. That's exactly what happened, right? From here, by the way, we learn the importance of the Brit Milah. That it's considered to be one of the most important mitzvot in the Torah. If a Jew is not circumcised, he's not considered to be really Jewish until he gets circumcision. So what happens is, it says Zohar Kadosh, something amazing, right? You know what it says in the Pirkei Avot? It says in Pirkei Avot, the ethics of the fathers. It says over there, Kol Yisrael yesh lehem chelek l'olam haba. All the Jews have a portion in the world to come. It says all Israel, all Jews. So comes Zohar Kadosh in the Sefer Bereshit, and you know what it says over there? What's the reason why that the Jews, all of them, have portion in the world to come? You know why? Because they get circumcision. In the merit of the circumcision, this is what gives them portion in the world to come. Can you imagine? Just because they do that one mitzvah. So that mitzvah has been considered to be a very important mitzvah.
The women.
So what does that mean? That also there's another thing which makes the mitzvah even more profound. They say, right, that the Brit Milah, is it a positive or negative mitzvah? What does that mean? I'm talking positive, negative?
Positive.
It's positive. You know what I'm talking about? You know what that means? What that means is it something active or something passive?
A good deed.
Is it active or passive? Do or don't do, right? That's what it means. Positive, negative. So milah is a positive, right? Like you said, it's do cut that thing off, right? The foreskin, cut it off. So the truth is, right, that there are many mitzvot. It says, right, there's a special Gemara. It's called Masachet Kretot. Right? Over there, it talks about all the sins that a person can do to be cut off from the Jewish people. Kretot means cutting off. There are certain sins, right, that a person gets cut off. But all those sins are negative sins. What does that mean? To refrain from doing certain things. Right? Right. To refrain from doing something which is not allowed. Most of them are like that, except 2 mitzvot, which are positive also, and they also are karet. You know what that is? Brit Milah, that's one of them, and also Korban Pesach, to bring the Pesach offering, right? Like they did over here when they left Mitzrayim. So those 2 are the only ones. Why? Because they're very severe.
If you don't do
You know, so
Korban
Brit
Pesach,
Milah,
you have karet?
right? There's a lot of there's a lot of things you have to learn about that. There's a lot of details involved, well, but in general, that's the way it is. You know what I mean? So what happens is that the Brit Milah is severe from all these angles. You know what I mean? First of all, right, that if you do it, you get a portion of the world to come. The Chazal also say, by the way, that a person who gets Brit Milah, he also has a portion in Eretz Israel. He can live in Eretz Israel. That's what gives him the merit to live in Eretz Israel. So it's considered to be a very important mitzvah. So Kadosh Baruch Hu therefore punished Moshe Rabbeinu. He told him, listen, I gave you such an important mitzvah. I gave you a son to do the mitzvah. And what are you doing? You're messing around with this, like you're waiting till you get to the gas station. You gotta do it now. Before you left, you should have done that. You know what I mean? So that's the reason why he was so vehement about that you should do this mitzvah. Because otherwise, if you don't do it, right, this is considered to be a big problem, right? It's you get cut off. By the way, who gets cut off? That's the question, right? Who gets cut off?
Where's the moil in this situation?
That's the question, right? Who gets cut off? That's So the truth is, right, that the father, let's say, right, has a son, and he didn't circumcise his son.
He's obligated, no?
The father's supposed to do it?
It's his obligation when the son is born. His obligation to circumcise
He's
his son.
supposed to do it himself? What if he doesn't?
Or he's supposed to get somebody who can do it, and if he doesn't know how to do it, let him get somebody else, right? The agent, right? Whatever, yeah. Right,
What
exactly.
if he does it himself, though?
Yeah.
What if you do it yourself, though?
If you know how to do it, yeah, sure. But most people don't know how to do it, so that's why we don't do
If you don't know how to do it,
But-
you're in a lot of trouble.
Okay, right? So what happens is like this, right? That now,
Some more kids.
It's not hard.
as we said, a person has to do it. If he doesn't do it, let's say the father, right? He didn't circumcise his son. Does he get cut off, his father? No. Doesn't get cut off. Does not. What does that mean? Even though he has a mitzvah, he's commanded to circumcise his son, but if he didn't do it, he doesn't get cut off from the Jewish people. It's a sin, but it's not cut off. So then who gets cut off? If the child grows up, right? Himself. And then he doesn't circumcise himself, he gets cut off. That's what happens. He's the one who gets cut off. So we see from there, right, the severity of Brit Milah, all these things, right, how important it is. So therefore, this is the reason why Moshe Rabbeinu was attacked over there on the road like this, right? He got attacked. So who saved him? His wife, right? When you have a good wife, she always saves your skin from all kinds of things. Right? That's the advantage of having a good wife, having a wise wife, right?
So they're all running around the desert talking about the thing. Is that it?
The penis?
Okay.
Say it openly. Why you have to hide it?
Huh?
Who cares? She's a smart woman. She's also a very righteous woman, they say.
No, I'm saying, they're all in the desert, they're all talking about that.
I want to tell you guys also another thing, right? Which is that now HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Moshe Rabbeinu, he tells him, I want you to go and save my people. Go to Paro and save my people, redeem them. So what does Moshe Rabbeinu say, right? We already mentioned this, but we have to make another point over here. Moshe Rabbeinu says, but they're not going to believe me. I'm going to go there, I'm going to look like a chump. They're going to think I'm nuts, I'm some kind of fanatic.
Show them.
Some kind of, false messiah.
Show me something.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's what they're going to think. Mm-hmm. So what happened was that Moshe Rabbeinu right now did a sin over here. What is the sin they did? Lashon hara. He spoke Lashon hara about the Jewish people. He said about them, they're not going to believe him. Right? He slandered them. He slandered the Jewish people. So therefore, Kadosh Baruch Hu said, okay, you know what I'm going to do and I'm going to show you, right? He showed him some miracles now. He said, right, put your hand inside your bosom, comes out, it's leprous, right? It's like, got sarat. It's not really leprosy, but it's sarat, something similar to that. So it comes in, so why is that? Because people who speak Lashon hara, they get smitten with sarat. That's their punishment. So then, right, he told him, put the rod down, your rod becomes a snake, right?
Yeah.
So why did he have the rod become a snake? What's the reason why? Because they say, right, that what? Who was the first creature that spoke Lashon hara? The snake was. Right? Why is that? Because the snake said to Chava, she came to Chava and she said, you know what? The reason why God doesn't want you to eat from that tree, you know why that is? Because he knows that if you do, you have power to be just like him, to be also a God. So he spoke Lashon hara about God.
He slandered God.
Yeah, right. He slandered God. And that's why Hashem never forgave the snake. He'll never be forgiven. So therefore, what happened was that the snake was the first one to speak Lashon. So Kadosh Baruch Hu showed to Moshe Rabbeinu, see how your rod became a snake? That's what you are, because you speak Lashon Hara about Jewish people. In other words, he gave him two signs that what? That
Don't
you're...
talk nonsense.
No, shut your mouth. Don't talk about my people like that. My children are believers. Ma'aminim, b'nei ma'aminim. They're believers, the children are believers. They're people who have belief, they have their faith in God. Don't say about them they don't have faith. It's not true. So what happened was, right, Chazal also learned from here another amazing thing. This is related to what we just had, some episodes, you're going to remember, right, what I'm talking about. That what Chazal say, we learn from here, this episode, something amazing, right? A person has to be careful what he says, comes out of his mouth. They say, right, that if a person slanders his fellow Jew, right, and the slander that he spoke was not true, right, it was a lie. False slander. He falsely slandered him. What do we call that in Hebrew?
Motzi
Shemra, right, exactly. That's the worst Lashon Hara. Lashon Hara is true, but it's slander. Motzi Shemra is not true. It's even worse. It's a lie. So they say, right, that what? That a person who speaks Motzi Shemra about his fellow Jew, there are certain things that happen to him. It's a very big sin. Right? We know this guy, what he did, right? The pharmacy guy, right? That guy, right? So what happened? That when you speak Motzi Shemra, we see from here, Moshe Rabbeinu said something about the Jews which is not true. He said they're not going to believe me. He spoke Motzi Shemra about them. So he got smitten on his hand, right, with leprosy, with tzarat. Not exactly leprosy, something similar to that. So the Chazal learned from here that what? That if a person says lies about his fellow Jew, and they're not true, right? So he gets smitten on his body. He gets some kind of bodily disease on him because of that. We learned that from Moshe Rabbeinu, right? That while he spoke lies about the Jewish people, he got smitten on his body. So they say, right, that what is that's how it says in Hebrew, right? Hachoshed bechavero ve'en bo, right? Lokeh begufo. What does that mean? The person who suspects his friend something which didn't do, right? He gets smitten on his body. That's what it says. We learned this from Moshe Rabbeinu. So a person has to be careful, right? Just don't just open your mouth and speak all kinds of things.
Better don't talk.
Okay, right, exactly. Why say all kinds of things which are not true? By the way, this is also an interesting point in halakha. That what? The question arises, right? We know speaking Lashon Hara is considered to be a very big sin, right?
Sure.
But what about speaking Lashon Hara about a person who's already dead? He already went, he's in the cemetery over there, Main Street, somewhere, whatever. Mount Hebron, whatever it's called, Mount Hebron.
Most would assume
whatever.
it's worse, but it's actually not worse.
He's already over there,
He's done already.
So now, the question is, am I allowed to speak Lashon Hara about him when he's dead?
Yeah, it can affect him.
You know what I mean? That's the question.
Can't affect him anymore.
Well, no, it was, the body is there.
No, he cannot be affected anymore. What does he benefit or lose? His reputation, who cares? He's done already.
So says the Gemara.
The body is, but not
Says the Gemara like this, right?
The soul is
That
still alive.
once a person dies, there is no prohibition anymore to speak Lashon Hara about him. You're allowed to speak Lashon Hara, right? Why is that? Very close to what you said.
He has no purpose anymore in this world.
So what does that mean? The whole purpose of Lashon Hara, right? The harm that it does is what? That person now gets a bad reputation. He may be, somebody may come and kill him because of that, or take his stuff, or he may be harmed, all kinds of stuff, He gets harmed from that. It harms his reputation.
Doesn't benefit.
It harms his standing in society. It makes him into suspicious, they look at him, this guy, we heard those stories that they're talking about him, all kinds of things, he got excommunicated, right, all kinds of stuff like that, right, somebody excommunicated him, you know that guy, right? So what happens is like this, right, that a person who speaks Motzi Shemra about his fellow Jew, as we said, right, he also gets smitten on his body, but there's also another thing. So what we said was if he's dead, as we said, right, there is no prohibition to speak about him Lashon Hara. But Motzi Shemra, something which is a lie, even on a dead person, you're not allowed to say. And even, can you imagine, even on a dead person, you're not allowed to, something which is not true. Why are you saying things which are not true?
It hurts their reputation.
No, because it's a lie.
So what's the reason why? What's the reason why? Yeah, but what does he care about his reputation? He's already dead. What reputation does he have? So you know what it is? He doesn't care about that. He's already in a different world. So what's the reason why? Because the rabbis made they made like a cherem on this, excommunication. Whoever says Motzi Shemra about somebody who's dead, is excommunicated
By itself.
by min hashamayim. Can you imagine? So it's considered to be something very severe, There's one exception, by the way, to this rule. Just want to tell you, they say if a person speaks Lashon Hara about a Talmid Chacham, even though he's dead, he still gets punished.
Okay.
Because he was Talmid Chacham. Why is that? Because Talmid Chacham, person who studies Torah all day, somebody who's all the time in Torah, so that's considered like God's servant, He's a man of God.
True.
You're speaking about him, so God takes it personally, It's like you spoke Lashon Hara about him. It's even worse than that. So Hashem punishes them. Where we learn this, there's a story, by the way, in the Masechet Brachot. There was one guy who spoke Lashon Hara about one of the Amoraim. His name was Mor Shemuel. So what happened was, he was speaking Lashon Hara about him. So what happened was that that day, right, it happened to be like a little bit windy, whatever. So he was standing like, next to a building. So the wind blew off something, from the roof, and it hit his head and split his brain into two. And they say, what happened to him? Nice 50-50, made his brain, like this. So why did that happen to him? Because he spoke Lashon Hara about Talmid Chacham. That's what it says, right? About this rabbi. Okay, so anyway, getting back to our story. There's also another thing, by the way, which is very severe. You want to hear something really shocking? They say that a person who says Motzi Shemra about his fellow Jew, and it's not true, as we said, right? It's not true. And that person, he heard what he said about him, but he didn't say nothing. He didn't answer him, stayed quiet. Either he wasn't there, he didn't hear it, or he was there, but, he didn't want to lower himself, to get into like a, tit for tat with this guy, get into one of these obnoxious, this kind of stuff, you know how it is, right? Go to 108, you'll see all those guys over there. So what happens is like this, right? That, what happens, they say? That person who spoke to Motzi Shemra about that guy, he takes all the sins that person has, and they give it to him. All the sins that he ever did in his life, he gets now a nice big present, they give him, and say, here, take all the sins that he did, and it's going to be on your head now. And all the mitzvot that you did, they're going to give it to him. They switch. You understand? Because you speak Motzi Shemra about him, they take your mitzvot, they give it to him, and they take his sins and give it to you. Unbelievable, right? So this is something very, very. So you see from here, by the way, how severe this sin is. The person has to be very careful.
Don't talk nonsense about people.
That's right. But the truth is, right, that sometimes it's a mitzvah to say these things, Lashon Hara. Sometimes you have to say. Why? Because you want to warn somebody. Somebody's dangerous, whatever. Something. There's something that could be harmed. Somebody could be harmed by this person. So in a case like that, you have to say. There's no choice. That depends on the situation. There's also, by the way, different. But Motzi Shemra, which is a lie. So that you could. Why should there's no excuse for that. Why? Because you're not doing it for any good reason. Why would you do such a thing like that? So therefore, there's no excuse for Motzi Shemra. If you're telling the truth, that's something else. Sometimes you need to do that. There's also another thing, right? You're allowed to speak Lashon Hara for also another purpose, which is what? There's a toilet. What does that mean in Hebrew? It's called toilet. What does that mean? There's something to learn from that, something to benefit. What does that mean? I'm telling you a story now, right? Two guys had this thing, and one did this and one did that, telling you all this stuff, Lashon Hara, about these people. But the reason I'm telling you is because I want you to learn a lesson, not to do that, because this is immoral, this is allowed. If there's some kind of benefit to learn from there, a lesson, some kind of moral lesson, or whatever it is, or to save somebody from, being harmed, things like this. So there you're allowed to say. And it's even a mitzvah sometimes, It's a mitzvah to say. Especially if a person is dangerous, it could harm you, there's a mitzvah to tell him. What are you going to do? Oh, no, I won't speak Lashon Hara, I won't tell you. What do you mean you won't tell him? So what do you want to do to the guy? You want him to die? That's what you prefer? They have to be crazy. They have to know. A person has to know, right? All these things. Okay, so we got the idea, right? So we got the idea of how severe this is. So as we mentioned, right, also last week, we mentioned also another thing, which was that Paro, when Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron came to Paro to speak to him the first time, so what happened was, right, that Paro flatly refused their offer, right? He said, what are you talking about? Now they're going to have to do it twice as hard, right? All these things, right? So what happened was that I want to look at the verse, I'm sorry, give me a second. Right, so now they go to speak to Paro. And Paro flatly refuses them, right? So they go out from there, they leave, and total failure, right? Total rejection. So what happens is, right now, Hashem tells Moshe Rabbeinu, you know what? I want you to go back again. Go back again. You and Aaron go back. So what happens is, right, that this time he gives him a plan though. He says, I want you to go and demonstrate to him, right, some nice tricks. To show, right, because he asked you about your God. Is it a real God? I don't know who this God is. I don't know who he is. Can you prove to me? So right away, right, Paro asked him, when they went, HaKadosh Baruch Hu already warned Moshe Rabbeinu. He's going to ask you for some kind of a sign, to show a sign that this God is real. He doesn't know who this God is, right? Or he pretends he doesn't know, right? Whatever, something like that, whatever, right? So what happens is that they show Paro these two signs. What does that mean? That they turn the staff into a snake, right? So Paro, when he sees that, he starts to like giggle, it's like chuckle, chuckles, Why is that? Why is he chuckling? Because he says, what do you think? You come, right? We do now do that too. We know sorcery. He thought that this was sorcery. He didn't know this was from God, So what happened was he started to chuckle. And he did the same thing with his magicians. So what happened was that the staff, but the snake of Moshe Rabbeinu ate those snakes. Why? What was the symbol over there? What was the idea? Why did this happen? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to show to Paro that this is not black magic. This is not sorcery, right? My powers are greater than the powers of black magic. So don't think you're going to be able to fight with me with that kind of stuff. It's not going to work on me. You know what I mean? That was the idea. To show Paro that this is something above what you have. It's something above and beyond. But Paro didn't pay attention to that. He said, this is just, I don't know, these two snakes, I don't know, one ate the other. It happens every day, by the way. One snake eats another snake. No big deal, That's not really anything important. So what happened was, right, that Paro didn't take it to heart. He just rejected that. He said, this is just a coincidence, one snake eats another snake. Happens all the time. Look on YouTube, you'll see all the time, right? You'll see, right? One snake ate another snake. He swallowed this one, he swallowed that one. The snake swallowed the alligator swallowed the snake, right? One day it's like this, one day, it's all a coincidence. So what happened was, right, that like this. That, as we said last week, we spoke about this, that since he told him to double the work, and to bring the straw now as well, besides making the bricks, so what happened was that they were not able to do double the work. It was too much for them. So what happened was that the officers, there was two sets of officers, right? There was the Jewish officers and there was the Egyptian officers. So the Egyptian officers were above the Jewish officers. They told them what to make the Jews do. So it was like a chain and command kind of thing, The officer, the general and the sergeant, going down, whatever. So what happened was that now the Egyptian officers tell the Jewish officers, listen, you got to do now double the job. So the Jewish officers had mercy on the Jews. They didn't want them to do that, because they knew they weren't capable of doing it. So what happened was that once the Egyptian officers saw that they were not doing the quota, they started to beat them. They beat the Jewish officers. So as we said, right, that this is the merit that they had, the Jewish officers, to become the elders of the Jewish people. We spoke about that, right? The merit was that, I just want to clarify that, right, how that happened. Because they had mercy on the Jews, and they didn't force them to do the job, because they knew that it was impossible for them. It wasn't feasible. So therefore, they took upon themselves to receive the punishment. That's what happened. Dabla chali, dabla. Koleli. Dabla. So, as we said, Rabbi, now what happens is, an amazing thing, right, happens over here. That Paro now has the audacity, right, after this whole event occurs, what does he do? He declares himself to be a god. This was the point. Yeah, he declared himself a god, By the way, that when a person comes to this low point, that he's a loser, Because there are a lot of losers who did this, you know what I'm talking about, right? These losers, there was Nebuchadnezzar, Sanherib, All these wicked rulers, they all made themselves into gods. They made themselves into divine. What's the reason why they did that, by the way? The reason is because they wanted to have the honor, they should come and pray to them, bow down and pray, like as if like they have power to do everything, to help them, to assist them in their lives. It's not God who does it. I do it. I'm the one who assists you. I'm the one who gives you divine providence. I'm the one who does everything in this world. I operate the whole world. It's mine. It's my world. Made himself into divine. So when HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees this, by the way, you know what he does, right? When he sees a leader who makes himself into divine, you know what he does, right? He now makes sure either to kill him or to destroy, to destroy him.
Of course.
You know what I mean? Why? Because this is like personally, he takes it personally. You're trying to be like me? I'm God. You're trying to be a God? What is this to you to be a God? You're trying to take my position? There's no other jobs besides this, right? There's a lot of employment now, right? The unemployment is very low. Get another job. You want to take my job? My job is taken, my friend. Why are you trying to be a God? So what happened was, Kadosh Baruch Hu wanted to humiliate Paro now, right? So what did he do? So Paro, there was one trick they used to pull. You know what the trick was? In order to prove that he was a God, so he would never go to the bathroom, like to show he doesn't urinate, he doesn't go in the room. He doesn't have to do his duties. He doesn't have to perform his duties. Why? Because he's a God. Gods don't go to the bathroom.
Oh boy.
You understand? So what happens is that Moshe Rabbeinu, right? He tells Moshe Rabbeinu, Hashem, he saw this whole trick. You understand? He said, I'm divine. I don't go to the bathroom. What bathroom? There's no bathroom for me. So how did he do it? How did he pull this off? Right? How did he pull it off? That he never goes to the bathroom. So what happened was, right? That every morning he would go to the Nile River in the morning. When he would get up early, instead of putting tefillin, and praying shachrit. What would he do? He would go over there, right, and do his duties over there in the Nile River, take care, and the rest of the day, he would hold it, Can you imagine? He would hold it in for the whole day just to show that he's a God.
Sure.
That's what he used to do. Can you imagine? He used to hold it. He used to go one time in the morning, and then hold it the whole day. That's what he used to do. This is amazing, right?
Sick man.
So, sick man, yeah. There's people sick people, people who make themselves into gods. So what happens is like this, right? That
he was a midget, though.
Now,
be someone aside.
So now, comes HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? He knows this whole trick, right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't like this stuff when you try to take his job. So he says, you know what? This guy declared himself a God. You see what he did? So he says, I want you now to catch him in the act. So he says, you know what? Go out in the morning, early in the morning. He goes out to the Nile River to do his duties over there. So he says, go and talk to him at that time, When he's standing in the river, go and say, hi, good morning. How are you? Want some scrambled eggs? What are you having for breakfast?
And then the crocodile.
as he's letting go of his of his materials,
right?
Hi, how are you? Nice to see you. Long time no see. What happened? What are you doing over there? What's your job to be in the Nile River early in the morning, right? The crack of morning, crack of the dawn. What's going on, right? So that's what he did, right? Why? Because he wanted to humiliate him, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to prove that he's not a God. What do you think? You're a God? You don't go to the bathroom? We'll show you what you really are, right?
Someone should go understand.
Exactly, that was the whole idea. You understand? To embarrass him like that.
Get stuffed up.
To go relieve himself.
So what happens is like this, right? That now comes Moshe Rabbeinu, right, and tells him, listen, I want you to let my people go. If you don't, I already came to you once. This is the second time. Now you're getting a warning. This time there's going to be a plague. There's going to be punishment. What's going to be the punishment? You're going to get blood everywhere. There's going to be blood. All the rivers, all the bodies of water are going to turn to blood. Right? Mm-hmm. So it tells Paro like that. Paro says, give me a break, get off my back. I don't care what you want to do. Go and do what you want to do. Leave me alone.
It's all around the world.
Let me take care of my bodily needs over here, Don't bother me now. So what happens is like this, right? The Kadosh Baruch Hu brings now the blood on the Egyptians. The first plague. So what happened was that every body of water had blood. Whatever it was. A reservoir, wells, rivers, streams, everything. Drinking water. You go into the fridge, can you imagine? You go into the fridge, you take a pitcher of water, the breeder of the pitcher,
Right.
it's all red. It's all blood.
Cherry drink.
So what is Kool-Aid, right? Kool-Aid, right? So what happened was that they couldn't drink anything. Can you imagine? They were thirsty. They had nothing to drink. But wherever the Jews were living in Goshen, in the north, right, over there was all the water was good, nice and kosher water, right? Everything kosher, nice, like pure, Deer Park, Poland Spring, nice, good spring water. And these guys are drinking, blood. They can't drink anything. What happens is now that they're like thirsty for water. They're gonna die. So what do? They said, you know what? Let's go out to our brethren, the Jews, and we'll drink over there. They have plenty of water over there. Those guys. Let's go over there. So they come over there. All the Egyptians, right? They get online. Okay, everybody's gonna drink. Get a glass of water. Take one pitcher with you. Take one jug of water. So what happens is, right, is when they take it, it turns into blood. They can't drink it. If they pick it up, it turns into blood.
They touch it.
Right, exactly. They take it, turns into blood. Wherever they go, it turns into blood. They go into the fridge of the Jew, they say, let me take from your fridge. It turns into blood. Right? Wherever they go, it turns into blood. They can't take it from anywhere. Can you imagine? Totally blocked out. So, okay, what do you do now, right? So they said, you know what, let's try a different scheme. Let's try a different one. What we'll do is we'll pour it into one cup, the water, right? And one Egyptian and a Jew will drink from one cup at the same time.
Sure.
Right, exactly, right? One from this side, right? Like two guys who fell in love, whatever. So they're drinking together, So what happens is, right, that what? His side is blood, his side is water.
Oh boy.
Can you imagine? In the same one utensil, one cup, same thing over there. So Egyptians are like, man, what's going to be? We're going to die of thirst. This is terrible. By the way, how long did the plagues go on? Every plague, they say, the Chazal, went on for 7 days. It was a 7-day job.
Each one?
Each one was 7 days, right. So how long did it take altogether? It took about a year. You know why? Because there was 7 days of plague. Right?
Plague.
There was a few days of warning before that. There was 7 days of plague. And then there was 2 weeks of relief. So each one was like a month, basically. Understand? So altogether, about a year.
Yeah.
The whole thing.
There was 10 plagues.
Right.
But there was also 2 weeks.
There was also periods in
There was
between.
time between. There was periods between.
So what happened was about a year. It was about a year. It was about a year, the whole thing, right? So what happens is like this, right? That they have no way to drink water. Who can live without 7 days without drinking? Cannot live like
Well,
that.
they can eat, and that's why they get the water to eat.
That only snakes do, right? The snakes do that, right? People cannot live like that, right? So what happens is like this, right? They finally get the idea. They say, you know what? Maybe we should pay the Jews, give them money, and then it won't turn into blood. Because they'll get some profit from it. You know what I mean? Because we're taking against their will. We're stealing from them. That's why it's turning into blood. So what happened was they started to pay. They said, okay, listen, I'll give you for one cup, $2. Make sure we put a twist of lemon in there, whatever. Nice. Okay, fine. It doesn't turn into blood. When they pay, it doesn't turn into blood.
Wow.
Can you imagine? So they say the Chazal that from this the Jews became rich. Why? Because all the Egyptians were coming to buy water from them, and this turned them into all nice big fat pockets they gave them. Nice big fat pockets. They had to come and buy from everybody. If they wouldn't pay for it, nothing would come out of it, right? Only if they paid. Otherwise, it would turn into blood. So now the Jews got rich. Understand? This is what happened. So, by the way, the Chazal say something amazing about this. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu made this 10 plagues with the Egyptians in a similar manner to how a general, or king makes war against a different nation. The first thing that a king does when he comes to make war against a different nation, he attacks the water supply. You know what I mean? They should be able to drink. Because once they're thirsty, they can't fight. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's what he did. He first attacked their water supply. That was the first. That was the first thing. In a sense, this was all like war strategy over here.
He said, "I'm going."
You understand?
To war.
Right, going to war with these people. Making a war with them. So the first thing was to attack the water supply. The last plague, what was it? Where he attacked their gods also. Their gods. He killed their gods. All the gods were destroyed of Egypt.
One, no?
Right? Yeah, exactly. Right. You know the story over there, right? We'll talk about that later installment.
Later, yeah.
Right. That's going to be later on. So what happens is, right, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu did this as like a war is conducted by a general, by a king. They say, by the way, we'll finish off with this, right? They say the Chazal that just like this whole thing was done in a matter of a year, the whole 10 plagues and the redemption from Egypt. The same thing is going to be on Gog and Magog also, right? When the final redemption comes, it's going to be also a year. Same thing. It's going to be like back and forth like this, A plague, this, relief, plague, relief. It's going to be miracles like that. Just like it was in time of Egypt, it's going to be the same thing. There's going to be plagues and relief.
What was the second thing?
Now you're talking about?
Yeah, we have time now.
Before we get to the second plague, I wanted to say something else, right? We'll talk about that next time. But what I wanted to say was that it just slipped my mind. But right, the frogs was the second thing. Yeah, you're right. The frogs was also
The water was polluted.
right.
And they were amphibians, so they could live outside the water. So they thought it was a plague that the frogs came out of the water.
Okay.
Syria.
Just want to see if I can find this thing.
Millions of frogs.
Yeah, all the frogs come out of the water. They can live out of the water. They're amphibians. The water's polluted, all the fish die, or everything in the water dies, that the frogs could come out and save themselves. So they thought it was, all the frogs were attacking them.
Why would the frogs attack them though?
They weren't attacking them, they were just coming out of the water, just all over the place. So they had nowhere to go.
You're talking about millions and millions and millions.
All the frogs out of the water. As a matter of fact, the red water.
I also want to mention, right, one more thing.
I'm just going to say, the
Okay,
red
okay,
water
please go.
was all over the earth. It wasn't just there in the Nile. Okay, if you go back into history, into the calendars, you'll see that water's turned red in other places of the world. It wasn't only there.
Robert, what were you going to say?
I want to say, right, that also another point that I wanted to make regarding something that we missed, that we're talking about now, the case where Moshe Rabbeinu, right, left Yitro and he went to Egypt to speak with Paro. So what happened was he took Tzipporah with him, as we said, right? But what happened was that Kadosh Baruch Hu called Aaron from Egypt. He said, you know what, I want you to come and meet your brother in the desert. He's going to be coming towards Mitzrayim. You come and meet him halfway, and you're going to be talking over there. Meet him over there. So what happens is that Aaron comes and sees.
You could leave Egypt?
Yeah, why is that, by the way? What's the reason why? Because he was a Levi. Right, exactly. Levites had free passage,
free
right. They were not slaves. They were not slaves. They had passports, They were able to get out.
Around, yeah.
Right, exactly. So what happens is that now
Yeah.
Aaron comes and sees Moshe Rabbeinu, and he's very happy. And Moshe Rabbeinu tells him, right, I've been appointed to save the Jewish people, to redeem the Jewish people. So Aaron, right, was older than Moshe Rabbeinu by 3 years. At that time, Moshe Rabbeinu was 80 years old, and Aaron was 83. So what happened was that Aaron really was supposed to be the leader of the family, and also the Jewish people as well. He was older than Moshe Rabbeinu, but Kadosh Baruch Hu appointed Moshe Rabbeinu to be the leader. So once Moshe Rabbeinu told Aaron this, instead of being, upset or, jealous, he was happy about that. Right? He was happy that his brother got this job. He wasn't jealous of him. He didn't, right? They say, by the way, because he was happy and didn't get jealous of his brother, this is the reason why he was zocheh. He had the merit to have the breastplate of the high priest on his breast, on his chest, right? Why is that? Because they said, right, the person who's happy for his brother is not jealous of something good that happens to him. That's the reward that he gets, right? He gets what was that breastplate for, by the way? What was the
God would speak to
it was prophecy, right? There was prophecy there.
It was open prophecy,
Exactly, there was prophecy.
It would light up.
So can you imagine that he was zocheh to get this breastplate because he wasn't jealous of his brother? But there was also another thing, right? They say that he saw that he brought Tzipporah and his children with him, Moshe Rabbeinu, to take them back to Mitzrayim. So Aaron objected, He told Moshe Rabbeinu, he said, listen, he said, why are you taking your wife and kids?
Into the war zone.
So he says, I'm taking you to Mitzrayim. What's the big deal? What's the big deal? So he says, what are you talking about? He says, we're trying over there to get out, and you're bringing more Jews in there to have a hard time. What do you, He says, that's not the right thing to do. So what he told them? He says, send them back to their father. And that's what he did. He sent them back, Because he listened to Aaron told him to send them back, he sent them back. So what happened was they went back to Yitro, and they stayed there all the time that Moshe Rabbeinu, right, was doing the miracles, until Yitro came later on, right?
He came himself
right, exactly. Once the Jews already went out of Mitzrayim, he came later on because he saw all the miracles that Hashem did, and he wanted to now convert. So he came to convert, Probably pay $1,000. No, he didn't pay $1,000, right?
I thought he came to help them.
Sorry?
I thought he came to help them.
What does that mean?
He didn't come to help them?
Help them with what?
They were leaving Egypt, whatnot.
He didn't come to help them. He came to greet them. He also came to bring Tzipporah. He said, listen, your wife and children, take them, take care of them. Once you've done your job, now take them back, right? We said the whole thing was that what? They were not supposed to be there because of the slavery, because they were in Egypt. Once they left, he said, okay, take your children and wife, go about your way. So what happened was that Moshe Rabbeinu, now, right, once Yitro came to meet him over there, he converted him, and he became Jewish. That's what happened, right? Yitro became a Jew. And
I'm sorry, does that mean that the Jewish nation has a sense of Yitro also in it?
So they say, right, that Yitro, because he converted L'Shem Shamayim for the sake of heaven, so he was Zocher, that what? He also got great reward. That what? That many of the heads of the Sanhedrin, the high court, were his descendants, right? There's, by the way, an interesting story with Yitro. Right? Yitro was Zocher to, as we said, right, that his sons came out to be very holy. But they say that there was also some very interesting things that Yitro told his children. He commanded them, right, like this. He said to them, when I want you, we're converting to Judaism, but I'm telling you on condition that what? I don't want you to drink any wine ever. In our family, there should be never drink any alcohol. He told them. Totally alcohol-free, right? Alcohol-free family.
Because they're Arabs?
Not Nazarites, but no alcohol, right? No wine. Why is that? He said, you know what? If you're going to drink, it's going to cause you, all the sins come from that, from being drunk. So he told them, I want you to stay away from alcohol. Don't touch that stuff. Stay into Torah, learn Torah, study Torah. He also told them, you know what? Don't build houses. Dwell in tents, he told them. So that's why the children of Yitro were always dwelling in tents. Why did he tell them that? You know what the story is? The story is like he told them, once you build houses, you feel too confident, you rebel against Hashem. I want you to always be like, temporary, like nomads, traveling from place to place. You don't feel too confident, you don't feel too, arrogant. You don't have the arrogance of having a big mansion. Once you get a big mansion, in the gardens over there, it makes you like, makes you think you're the hot shot, you're the head of the world, you're the top notch, whatever. So that therefore he told them, don't drink alcohol, no wine for you, and don't build houses. That's what he commanded them. Concentrate on Torah. Don't concentrate on material things.
But the tents are technically a euphemism for Torah anyway. The tent.
Okay. So anyway, that's what he told them. They say, by the way, that when the time for the exile came, after the first temple was destroyed, up till that point, they kept the commandments of Yitro. The children of Yitro. All those generations, they never built houses, and they always dwelled in tents, and also they never drank alcohol, they never drank wine. Until that day. Right? That's what they did.
What tribe were they a part of?
When you're a convert, you don't belong to a tribe. You understand?
Right.
You're not really part of a tribe, but you're a Jew.
They apportioned the land.
In the first two temples, they didn't have. They say in the third temple, the converts will also get a portion, right? This is something new for the third temple.
So if you were a convert back in the day, where would you live?
You have to buy a piece of land. Just like we buy today,
One sec. If you were born...
You didn't get a free piece of land, that's what it means, No freebies. No free lunch.
Everybody would get free piece of land?
Everybody got freebie, but these guys didn't get freebie, There was inheritance. Everybody got inheritance. So converts had to pay for the land, or pay rent, or pay whatever. That was the idea. But they say the third temple, the converts will also get.
Does that mean, like, for example, Jerusalem itself is divided to Benjamin and Yehuda, right? So that means that the children of Benjamin and Yehuda, they would have that land, like it's their inheritance, that's their land?
Jerusalem was not inherited by anybody. There was no inheritance there. You had to buy over there in land. There was no inheritance.
I thought
because it belonged to all the tribes. You know what I mean? In terms of inheritance, it belonged to everybody.
The Temple Mount itself is split in half.
What does that mean?
The Temple Mount, the land.
What does that mean, split in half?
It's in two territories.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, sure. Yeah,
so
sure.
they own that land?
No, they don't own it. It's in their territory, but there's no ownership.
I see.
Territory is one thing. Ownership is a different stuff.
And what about the 60 cities in Libya, Levites? They were owned by the Levites, or they have also no claim?
That's their inheritance. Yes. Those are inheritance. They don't have to buy that. You know what I mean? But when it comes to the converts, they had to buy land. That's the way it was, but in the third temple, they say they will also receive inheritance. The converts. Thank you. God bless you.